Well, we're back after a long illness. It wasn't me, it was my equipment. I want to get right to a Paul McCartney thing that I shot in 1993. I toured with Paul starting in Japan, and I filmed a rehearsal. And for like 2.5 hours, it was just me filming. I was like Paul's personal videographer there. And at one point, he did a song which I wasn't familiar with at the time. And he said, well, it was the first song he ever wrote, and it was called "I Lost My Little Girl." So I just want to talk about it, and I'll introduce my new co-host as well. First song Paul ever wrote, and I thought we'd talk about comparing it to the first song John ever wrote, which was "Hello, Little Girl." So Paul first wrote "I Lost My Little Girl," and then apparently John found her, and then years later, a couple of years later, George wrote his first song, which was "Don't Bother Me." And, to me, George's song is kind of groundbreaking because it's sort of the first kind of negative song in the Beatles catalog. It's not all that happy. And I prefer that one to Paul's "Lost My Little Girl" and also John's "Hello, Little Girl." And I know you've heard them all. Paul was 15 when he wrote his first song. And I think John was 17 when he wrote his, "Hello, Little Girl." Now, George had the benefit of a few more years of maturity. I think it was in 63, so George would have been 20. So he was the oldest one to write his first song and presumably the most mature in a sense. Plus, he had the benefit of some years of basking in the shadow of John and Paul's songwriting and kind of learning from that. So, what do you think? And then I'll tell who you are. So anyway, my new co-host is, and we'll get to the discussion about these three songs in a second. It happens to be my brother, my older brother, Jack. I live in New York and he lives in Massachusetts. So, it's like a 4-hour car ride. It'd be a little shorter if they could just get rid of Connecticut. But anyway, why don't you say hello to the folks at home there, Jack?
Hey everybody, I'm Michael's brother, and as you mentioned, I live near Boston, and we grew up with the Beatles, bought all their albums as they came out, and spent countless hours listening to them.
But, getting back to George Harrison for a second, so I think his songwriting, well, everyone talks about it, but, my take on it is, early on, he basically wrote like Lennon and McCartney, aside from the negativity of the song, it's sort of feels like that. And songs like "I Need You," from the Help album, those are kind of like Lennon and McCartney. So he kind of was very influenced by them. Then there's sort of a middle to late period where he actually wrote like George Harrison, songs like "Within You and Without You" and "Blue Jay Way," they're very much him,
Yes.
And then in my half-baked theory, towards the end, he was writing like Paul McCartney, kind of, or influenced by him, let's say, to be fair. Like a song like "Here Comes the Sun" or something, it's not something you would picture John Lennon writing, but you could possibly see Paul McCartney, going along those lines. And even in his first solo album, that song "Wah Wah," it's very McCartney because it has basically the same guitar riff as "I've Got a Feeling," So,
Yeah,
that's
never actually put those two together, but yeah, that's true. We haven't discussed Ringo here. The first tune he wrote didn't show up till late in their careers together as the Beatles. It was "Don't Pass Me By." That was referenced as early as, 63 or 64.
Yeah, there was an interview, probably late '63, somewhere, like a radio, and Ringo, have you written any songs? And then Paul, he says, he starts singing it, "Don't pass me by," no. So yeah, it really went way back, But one guy, I don't know, somebody had posted that song or something, and some guy commented. He said, I like that song, but it really gives me the creeps. That line, "You were in a car crash and you lost your hair," So I said, yeah, that is a little strange. So I actually searched it. It's lost your hair or losing your hair is British slang for freaking out. Like it's not literal.
Wow. All
So,
these years, I actually had a visual image of the car crash and losing your hair in a car crash.
exactly.
Wow.
That could have changed the Paul is dead rumor to Paul is bald.